human beings. Welcome, first of all, to my YouTube channel. I've just gotten myself a new camera. She is gorgeous. I need to name her. She has a little fluffy thing on top, and I'm hoping that that means that the sound quality is good. We shall see. Anyway, basically I wanted to start doing YouTube primarily because you guys constantly ask me to. So that's like the first thing. The second thing is that I wanted to do like longer style videos, just have chit chats. So my plan is as follows. I'm going to do short videos on like a particular topic that's just for YouTube. Then I'm going to do like these chit chat style videos as well as vlogging as like the second category, and then the third category will be like vlog casting. Is that what it's called? Like video podcasting? I don't really know what the term is. They'll be like with the proper microphone, and then those podcasts like audios will also be available on like Spotify and stuff. But these style of videos in like the vlog category will be like way more chill. They'll just be, you know, we're just having a chit chat as friends. And you guys like are obsessed with like the tipsy TikTok situation, so I thought that I'd like bring that over to YouTube. Have I come up with a funny little name? No, I haven't. But someone on TikTok was like, being drunk and history, they go together. They are one. And I was like, I mean, you're not wrong. So I'm just gonna have a little beverage, you know, end of the day. But let us begin. Yes, this is a beaker. I feel like you shouldn't have to ask because it's me, you know? Just say, if you want to support the channel, please do all the things like the liking and the subscribing and the pushing of the bell. It helps a ton, like a ton. The reason that creators always ask you to do that is like brands and sponsorships and all that are how we make an income from creating content. So the more income we can make, the better content we can create, like the more we can give you, and it's like free for you too, you know what I mean? Like, man, my tan looks really bad in this lighting. So today I thought that we'd have a little chit chat about female warriors and who was who in the zoo. Like, I try to keep my TikToks very concise so you get as much information as you can. This is going to be a little bit more of a like, you know, opinion piece, you know. 7 badass women today. The first I want to talk about is Fu Hao. I covered her on TikTok. She was in the Shang Dynasty. She was a Chinese lady, which is about 1200 BCE. So a very long time ago. We're talking like Egyptians were like peaking in this period alongside. Then on the other side of the earth, the other side of the planet, world, not the other, anyway, in China, alongside that, we've got the Shang Dynasty. And because it's so elderly, we don't have like the best records on it, right? So anything that we do have is like amazing. I probably shouldn't have said that because we do have lots of records. Anyway, whatever. So Fu Hao was just one single one of the 60 wives that the emperor had. You heard that correctly. The harem was elite. She was just one of them. And she was the only one that got like a tomb built for her. So like, not saying she was the favorite wife, but like she low-key was the favorite wife. So the really crazy thing about Fu Hao is that she was both a high priestess, so like religion wise she was up there, and she was in charge of the military. She was a military general, which is absolutely cray-cray for a woman, let alone like really anyone, you know what I mean? Being in charge of the military of like literal China. So according to inscriptions on oracle bones, Fu Hao led many a military campaign. By the end of things, she was commanding 13,000 soldiers. That maybe doesn't sound like a lot in modern context, but let me just put it into perspective. So the average skirmish around that time period, so the average war was about 1,000 people. That was considered like a war. So, I mean, in modern concepts or whatever, that's maybe not a whole lot of people, but back then, because like the population was not as large and blah blah blah, 1,000 people in one battle was huge. So to command 13,000 troops or soldiers, that was humongous, right? So the next crazy part about Fu Hao is that we literally dug her up in an untouched tomb. Untouched. The reason that's crazy is that, like, due to all the commotion that's gone on in the last like 3,500 years in China, it's really rare to find anything on the Shang dynasty full stop. The tombs that we find from even like earlier tombs usually have been looted, like raided, tomb raider. So yeah, to find an untouched tomb, like full stop, period. And then to find an untouched tomb from the Shang dynasty is even more dramatic. Let alone it being untouched and it having like a copious amount of stuff in it, including bodies, including 16 servants that were buried with her to take her into the afterlife. Some buried alive. Yeah, alive. Crazy. There were like, it was the Bronze Age, right? So bronze was like the best of the best. There were so many bronze artifacts, basically signifying that she was so important to the king, so important that she was buried as a king, because only like kings at this time, or emperors, I mean, it's not like technically an emperor at this point in time, more a king. Yeah, only like males would be buried in any fashion similar to this, yet this female, Fu Hao, this wife, this queen, was so important that she was buried in this super elaborate burial. She was a badass. The other thing about Fu Hao that's like super interesting is that she didn't just like command, she fought in the battles, which I think is so badass of her. You know, obviously the king liked her, I like her, like how could you not? Okay, number 2, Tomyris. Let's fast forward ourselves about 500 years. We're talking about 530 BCE. Pardon me. So Tomyris is the queen of the I can never get this word right. Massaegetae. It's spelt, it doesn't like, it's spelt differently. Anyway, the Massaegetae people. So this, like, this, why does my brain always do this? It just, amount of land, oh gosh, empire, no. Right, the area that she was like the queen of was huge. It's like modern day Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, all the stans. She was the lady that controlled all of it. Now they had these nomadic tribes, and basically their thing was horses and bows. They were like expert archers, expert horse riders. And the cool thing about that is that because they used the horses in battle, and because they used arrows and not like swords or daggers or things that you needed to be up close for, the women could be just as effective as a soldier as a male could, because like the horse did most of the stuff, and like a woman's eye is just as good, you know, if not. I think like there's literally statistics that women are better shooters. Don't hate me for that, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Tomyris, right? Tomyris. Not sure on the pronunciation. She was, it was essentially a confederation, right? There was all these nomadic tribes that moved around heaps around this huge amount of land. And she kind of brung them together. So she married the like last kind of like king, and then the king died, so she then became the queen. And at the start there was a lot of civil unrest about her being the queen. They were like, yeah, this whole like women leading us thing, not super keen on that. But anyway, she proved herself loyal. She like proved herself to her people. They were like, by the, you know, few years in, they were like, no, she's bomb. Like, we love her. So she's got the support of this confederation of tribes, which is like this huge empire, really. And because they're nomadic and they like live the life of the nomad, they're like, we just do what we want. We're free people. We are what we are. Okay. Now in Persia, we have this power-hungry Persian king, Cyrus the Great. Through like hardcore war and like murder and plundering, he has started what is known as like the initial Persian Empire, right? And he wants a slice of Tomyris's land. He wants in, you know. So his aim, or his like move, is, hey, like, let's get married because you're beautiful and you're amazing and like you're the best and like I'm the best, so marry me. Anyway, Tomyris is like, ugh. Like, she sees straight through it and she's like, I am absolutely not marrying you. So then Cyrus, who like obviously has a very shakeable ego, is just like, fine, we're at war. Too bad, we're at war. Anyway, by the way, did I mention that Tomyris had a son? She has a son. Anyway, so Cyrus of Persia launches this full-on war, and instead of being like, let's do a battle or like whatever, he does this really strange thing where he sends over some of his weaker soldiers to like set up a feast. So they, like, the weaker soldiers, the soldiers that like he doesn't even care about, go over there, set up this grand feast. And then obviously Tomyris's men come upon them, kill the soldiers. And then once the soldiers were dead, they were like, well, we can't let this food go to waste. So they eat the food. Turns out the food was poisoned. Poisoned. So basically they all die, and amongst them is Tomyris's son. He dies, and Tomyris is like grief stricken. She's shook. She's a mum, you know, like, and her only son has died because Cyrus is a little bitch and used poison, which is like I think throughout all time, using poison has been seen as like a weak way to do things. You know what I mean? Like it's not honorable. And it was that way in 530 BCE as well. Anyway, basically what happens is that Cyrus is like, this ends now. I'm sending in my full forces and I'm coming in too. So they have a full-on battle, and the nomadic Tomyris's people on their horse with their bows and arrows absolutely decimate. They win the war. And Tomyris realizes once the battle has kind of been won that Cyrus died amongst the people that died. And she was like, no, this is not good enough. Like, he does not get to die so easily and get away with it. So she cuts off his head and fills this like bowl with human blood and then dips the head into the blood and says, I live and have conquered you in fight, and yet by you I am ruined, for you took my son with guile, and thus I make good my threat, and I give you your fill of blood. Tomyris was not a queen to be messed with. Number 3, Artemisia the first of Caria, feet 480 BCE. So about 100 years or 150 years after Tomyris, and we're talking about the Greek queen. Sorry, my 5-year-old daughter is texting me. Artemisia the first of Caria is the Greek queen of Halicarnassus. Halicarnassus, I think that's pronounced correctly. Artemisia ruled in, the late 5th century BCE. She was not only an ally to the king of Persia, so Persia's come like a long way, you know, they're like huge at this point. And we're talking about Xerxes the first, and he was a big deal. So she was an ally to the king of Persia, Xerxes the first, and fought him during the second Persian invasion of Greece. Personally commanding 5 ships at the Battle of Salami. No, not salami, Salamis. She was a decisive, albeit intelligent, but ruthless strategist. Artemisia. So Artemisia basically like baits and switches. That's probably whatever. So the Persian king Xerxes and his army had overrun much of Greece, right? And his navy of about 800 galleys bottled up the smaller Greek fleet of about 370 like boats. We're talking about boats, you know. So the Greek, basically she like comes up with this plan, and she's like, okay, Commander Themistocles, I can't pronounce his name, but it's like, let's call him Them. She says, okay, Them, lure the Persian fleet in to the narrow waters. So there was like this really narrow, hard to get through area to get to Halicarnassus. And then, the fleet was like in these narrow waters of the strait at Salamis, when the massed Persian ships are like having a really hard time maneuvering the ships in the area. And then the Greeks pounce. They wreck them. They attacked furiously, and they rammed and sinked the Persian vessels and basically like jumped on there. There was 300 Persian vessels and only 40 Greek vessels. But because the Persians were having such a bad time getting through that strait, they were like, and they wrecked them, and she won the battle. And she was like, So she used geography to her power and therefore got a spot on the top 10 list. Okay, next up is Cynane. Cynane, I'm not really sure. I call her Cynane because that's what it looks like to me. We're still talking around 358 to 320 BCE. And we're talking about the Greek Empire. The Greek Empire is at its peak Oh my goodness, it's 4:30. Okay, I'm like so distractible now. It's all kicked in and we're only at number 4. Oh gosh, this is gonna be terrible. Okay, so Cynane was the daughter of King Philip II of Macedon. People are always up in my business being like, Macedonia was not Greek, it's Macedonia. In Greek history, there are polises, right? Various city-states that are a part of the Greek Empire, have protection and like loyalty. They have loyalty to the Greek Empire, but they are different states: Sparta, Athens, Macedonia. Okay. So King Philip of Macedonia II has an Illyrian Princess Audata. Okay, they make a baby. The baby that they make is Cynane. Now, she happens to be the half-sister to Alexander the Great because they share a father. Okay. So Audata raised Cynane in the Illyrian tradition, which was basically being a battling badass. They were warriors, they were training in the arts of war, they were fighting. She had skills, nunchuck skills, computer hacking skills. No, not computer hacking. That was silly. Her skill on the battlefield was like famed throughout the land. She was like known for it. So Cynane accompanied the Macedonian army on the campaign alongside Alexander the Great, and she slew an Illyrian queen, masterminded the slaughter of her army, and she was like a military prowess. Like, she was a bad freaking ass. So Alexander the Great dies in 323 BCE, and Cynane attempts this like power play. In the wreckage of her half-brother's death, she's like, okay, let's get it. This is the time to act. So she ensues this chaos, right? She champions her daughter, so her daughter Aida, again, not in the right mind frame to be pronouncing things correctly. She gets her daughter to marry Philip, okay, Alexander's half-brother. It's really confusing at this point because there's like half-brother, so there's like a half-sister and a half-brother, and then the half-brother Alexandria has another half-brother, which I don't believe was related to Cynane, right? So Cynane has a daughter. Her half-uncle via the father was Alexandria. Alexandria, by the mother, has a half-brother, Philip. But he's special, okay? He's half-minded in... simple-minded, that was the term back then. Anyway, Cynane wants her daughter to marry her, like, twice removed uncle? I don't know. I don't even know if they're relatives at this point. I'm confused, you're confused, we're all confused. Basically, Philip at this point was like put in place as like a puppet king because he was disabled, right? He couldn't rule as a king, but he's like put in the place because like he's got the right blood, whatever. There's obviously people behind the scene that are doing things. Cynane is seen as this like threat to their power. They're being the people that like are pulling the strings of the puppet king, right? Undeterred, Cynane gathers a powerful army and marches into Asia and places her own daughter on the throne by force. And as she as her army are marching through Asia towards Babylon, Cynane was confronted by another army by Alcestius, the brother. Oh, honestly, it gets confusing. Basically, anyway, she dies. She ended up dying. Story keeps on going. So like 5 and 6 are a continuation, right? So the mother of Alexander the Great. Cynane was the half sister of Alexander the Great via Philip. But then there was the mother of Alexander the Great, Olympias. Olympias was one of the most remarkable women in antiquity. She was a princess. She was, you know, she was a fashion queen. She was everything. She was amazing. She was a part of the most powerful tribe in Ypres, basically like in current day northwest Greece, southern Albania. That's what we're talking about. It was called Ypres. Anyway, whatever. And her family came, like, basically was like, yeah, we're descendants from Achilles. Yes, the mythical Achilles. Anyway, whatever. Despite this impressive claim, many Greeks considered her home kingdom to be semi-barbarous. Yeah. A realm tainted with vice because of its proximity to the raiding Illyrians in the north. The Illyrians being a warrior people. Thus, surviving texts often perceive her as somewhat of an exotic character. Anyway, she gets married to King Philip II. They have Alexander the Great 2 years later. Further conflict was added, obviously. So Olympus began to fear her marriage, and obviously Alexander inherits Philip's throne, right? So there's a strong possibility that Olympus was involved in subsequent murders of Philip II. Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? Philip II, the daddy of Alexander the Great, Cynane, who we just spoke about, she possibly was involved in killing her own husband. Drama. So she has another baby, Cleopatra Eurydice, better known as Eurydice. Basically, she would not stop, would not give up until her son Alexander got on that throne. Would not accept otherwise. Obviously she succeeded. When Alexander died, she became a major player. Mummy girl, she became a major player. Anyway, in 317 BCE, she led an army into Macedonia and was confronted by another army led by a queen. Yeah. Guess who? Cynane's daughter, Eurydice. A family member. A distant family member. A somewhat connected family member. This is the first time in Greek history where 2 women lead the armies that are facing off. Basically, as soon as they saw the mummy of Alexander the Great, Eurydice's army deserted them. They were like, wee, bye. And then, like, they run after them, they capture Eurydice and Philip and Eurydice's husband, and Olympus had them imprisoned. And then on Christmas Day, 317, Olympus sent Eurydice a sword, a noose, and some headlock, and was like, yo, I should have said that. I was like, yo, unalive yourself. And I let her talk about that on YouTube. It happened though. It's history. Anyway, Eurydice chose the noose. Anyway, Olympus did not live long after this victory. Macedonia was overthrown by Cassander and blah, 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 blah. I've only got one more in me. And Boudicca deserves the spot. Boudicca. queen of the Celtic Iceni tribe, right? We're talking about 60 to 61 CE, Common Era / AD, after death of Jesus, if we're going with a Christian, but I like to use CE because it's more politically correct. It applies to more of us. Anyway, basically, like the last story we were in, what, like 300? We're talking about like 400 and something years later. So Rome is like slaying. Ancient Greece is like ancient. The Romans have come in, they've dominated, they are like everywhere. The Romans are ruling over Britain, and the Celtic Iceni tribe and many other Celtic tribes are just trying to live. They're just trying to be, you know. Anyway, Boudicca gets married to the king of the Iceni tribe. Now he's buddy with the Romans, and when he dies and she's grief-stricken, the Romans come in and they're like, I'm gonna tell you who's boss. And they do the unimaginable. They take Boudicca, they put her on a pole and they whip her. And I don't know if you've ever seen images of Roman whips. They are horrific. They had like these pointy barts. Anyway, she was really badly abused, and she had 2 daughters. Those daughters were taken and they were R-worded. It was horrific. They were abused. It was absolutely unspeakable. They did this to put her under their thumb. They were like, if we humiliate her in front of the entire population, if we do this to her daughters, she won't ever try to rise up against us. Well, weren't they wrong? Boudicca was nothing but fueled by this awful act. She was like, she switched, you know what I mean? Like, she was like fine to be like a priestess, really, like into spirituality, being a mommy, and then she switched and she was like, the Romans will pay for what they have done to me. She unites all of these Celtic tribes that traditionally would have been at war with one another, and she unites these people and she's like, we're gonna kill all the Romans, we're gonna get them out of our land. And so the Romans were known to be very strategic in the way of their warfare. They would be on the battlefield and they were powerful in that sense. Tribesmen and these like real life people, they were chaotic, they were unpredictable, and it worked in their favor. So she led them like in the middle of the night, anyway, she led them in the middle of the night and they ransacked the place and they dominated. They wrecked Rome because they just were so unpredictable, right? They burnt to the ground three Roman cities. Massive feat. So she essentially all but annihilated one of Rome's legions in Britain, the 9th Legion. Like, it cannot be expressed how well she did. However, in the end, her army was defeated by the Romans. Now, we don't actually know if she was killed in battle or if she chose to end her own life because she did not want to die by the Romans' hand. We're not totally sure which is true. I think like seeing the type of woman that she was, probably the second. 7 incredible female warriors. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more of these style videos, I mean, just like having a chit chat, let me know in the comments below. If you don't like it, then that's, you know, like, let me know, I guess. Mwah. Love and light. Bye, guys. Oh, how do I turn? I don't actually know how to turn this off. Whoa. She's new to YouTube. She doesn't know what she's doing.